Thank you, Yang Hormat. Could I please welcome Her Excellency Victoria Treadell to say a few words? Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The Honourable Datuk Paulo, Minister in the Prime Minister's Department, Your Royal Highness Tunku Abidin Mukris, founding President of the Institute for Democracy and Economic Affairs, IDEAS. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to try and do two things to explain to you why we think open government partnership and open data is important, but also to share a little bit about the UK experience. I'm delighted also to be here on behalf of my own government to jointly open today's seminar. The UK strongly supports Malaysia and the many initiatives that we have heard about to pursue open government data through its Multimedia Development Corporation partnership with the Open Data Institute. We are proud, therefore, to co-sponsor today's seminar, and this is another example of the type of partnership that we at the British High Commission are trying to establish with organisations and institutions in the public sector, in the private sector, in civil society across Malaysia, because engagement with the people of this country in all walks of life is fundamental to the relationship between Britain and Malaysia. It genuinely is in the spirit of partnership that we pursue initiatives like this. The Open Government Partnership is not a new movement. I think there's a lot of misunderstanding about what it can be, what it offers, and I think part of the process today is to dispel some of those myths and actually reveal the good that it can do if it is embraced in the way that it should be embraced. Globally, it has gathered momentum in recent years. And the question is why? Why would something like this develop a pace of its own, be embraced by an increasing number of countries? The answer is very simple, because it delivers real results. It has genuine impact, and I will try to highlight some of this. Reforms in this area have, for example, delivered tangible benefits: faster growth, better public services, reduced corruption and poverty in the countries that have truly embraced it. But I know this does not come easily. It requires a level of ambition, and it requires governments to be courageous. It requires governments to put the people they serve first. Every government in every nation, when they assume government, do not just represent those that vote for them, their supporters, but also their detractors. They become a government for the whole of the nation, and they are accountable to every citizen and every institution. Therefore, in embracing open government, each government, in whichever country it is, embraces the simple principle of accountability, and by providing a platform on which data is available for people to understand and see that there is transparency of government. And once you take it on board, it requires application, focus, and purpose. It is not just a membership group to join to say that you belong to the OGP. It means that you genuinely absorb its principles into the way you go about governing a country. And our view, and those who are part of the OGP already, is that open governments are essential for the well-being and empowerment of citizens around the world, helping to ensure that those who take decisions that affect people's lives are properly accountable and responsive to the public. Now, I hear the view sometimes that, and I take the point that the Minister made earlier, is a society mature enough? Well, if you ask the question of a child when you raise it, how does that child grow? How does that child learn? How does that child become mature? It's by the imparting of knowledge to that child, giving it the means to read and understand the information that that child can be given or can draw down for themselves. That is how you reach maturity. And OGP is part of that in terms of the knowledge and maturity of a society to understand what good governance should look like and to ask the right questions. Of course, it also requires responsibility amongst citizens, not to use it for mischief, but actually for the proper purpose that it is there. And the two-way contract that any government should have with its citizenry is about understanding that principle of shared responsibility. If you are creating an open space where information is accessible, both parties have to actually treat it with the respect and the purpose for which it is laid out. So if this is embraced in the proper way, it will further help to ensure that there is effective, equitable, and sustainable use of resources, delivery of public services, and the exercise of authority. The OGP establishes a platform for independent and collaborative action by citizens, by civil society, by private companies, and by public servants. And certainly, I also think, with regard to the public sector, OGP is part of a wider piece with the modernization of government with public sector reform. If civil servants are to have the confidence of the support of their ministers, but also their own accountability in their sphere, public sector reform, for me, is an equal part of the proposition. OGP as a platform is an essential foundation for economic, social, and political progress by increasing the openness of institutions and public processes whilst maintaining and respecting the privacy of individuals. And I do take that point that you touched on, Minister, and it goes back to that issue of responsibility. There is a balance to be had by the amount of open data that is available and the privacy of individuals in society, and finding the right equation to get the right balance on that front is very important. So within the UK, we have consistently made clear our commitment to become the most open and transparent government in the world. And the reason why we do that, last time I shared a stage with you, Minister, I used the phrase which was reported in the media in a different context, but it was a debate on moderation. We must all practice at home what we preach internationally. So for Britain to be an advocate for open government, we must be leaders in that field internationally. Not that we get it right every time. Of course, in introducing something like this, we will make mistakes. But as long as we learn from those mistakes, but those who follow us can avoid those pitfalls and skip one or two evolutionary phases. So to go back to us practicing what we preach, the UK was one of 8 founding countries when the Open Government Partnership was launched in September 2011 at the United Nations General Assembly. As the lead co-chair of the OGP in 2013, with Indonesia being the second co-chair, the UK government has genuinely taken a leadership position on many important issues civil society has been calling for, such as open data, fiscal transparency, government integrity, and natural resource transparency. We are leading the world on open data and have recently topped the Global Data Index in 2014 and the World Wide Web Foundation's Open Data Barometer. So that independent verification of our leadership in this sphere is very important, because we can say we're good at it, but if someone external says, yes, Britain is leading the field, then I think it gives us greater credibility when we explain how it works for us, why it works for us, and why we think it is important. Our government web portal data data.gov.uk is the most comprehensive data resource in the world, with more than 20,000 data files. We have reaped tremendous benefits through our commitments towards the OGP. In 2012, for example, a small analytics company identified £200 million of NHS savings by analysing prescription data, pinpointing where GPs were prescribing branded statins instead of cheaper generic alternatives as a result of going into open data and analysing the information for itself. That's a great example of how, by making such information available, you have the power of many other people coming up with solutions and ideas that actually helped to reduce costs in the public sector. It helps to carry the burden with government and can be a very powerful instrument. Another example, the Windsor and Maidenhead Council publish real-time data on energy use in public buildings, and this has helped them to cut their energy bills by 16%. Can you imagine cutting air conditioning bills by 16% throughout Malaysia? If the information is out there and people can work out for themselves what their energy consumption is and the cost to them, it's a real motivator to come up with ways and solutions to reduce those costs. And people genuinely feel empowered that they are contributing towards a greater good. Our embassies, the British ones here and across ASEAN, are ever ready to share our experience on pursuing OGP with our friends and partners in the region. That's one reason why we are here today supporting today's event. And our colleagues from the Cabinet Office, the head of data.gov.uk, who's here today, maybe you'd like to stand up so everyone can see you, is also very keen to share with you his experience on how data has been used to generate business, improve communication between government and the public, as well as increase civic engagement. So I do hope you make the most of his presence here, flown in especially for the occasion. Finally, I would just like to thank you all for coming, and I hope you enjoy this series of events. The organizer has done an excellent job in putting together today's event, and we're being treated to a distinguished lineup of speakers. So I'm sure the discussions will be extremely useful. And I hope to stay with you for most of the morning, and I shall certainly look forward to catching up with a number of members of my team who are scattered amongst the audience. I can spot them all out there, and I'd like to do this too. Can all members of the British High Commission please stand up so that people can see you too? Yeah, quite a few of us. So we're making sure that we are spreading ourselves around to engage with all of you. And indeed, this morning's events, I hope, will lead to other ideas and other areas where we can collaborate and look at initiatives that can provide some of the follow-up to the conclusions that come out from discussions today. Thank you very much, everybody, for your time. Have a great seminar.
Thank you, Her Excellency. Could I please invite the guest of honor to the front of the stage for a quick photo opportunity? I would also like to welcome Antonio Acuna to join us in the photo, as well as Miko. Thank